make a profit, have ownership. So it's like I want to have ownership in each film I make because obviously it's like building that, it's like owning real estate, right?
Yeah.
So that's important to me, and but also acting and if it's appropriate, because not every movie will have a role that's appropriate for me.
Hello and welcome to Indie Chat episode 4. Today we're talking with Jamie Ohlsen, a very talented up and coming producer and actress. I've been watching her career just explode for the past few years, and I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have with her here. I hope you stick around to the end. Jamie, so great to have you on today. Thank you for coming in to chat. I I've been really excited watching your career over the past few years. I've just seen you taking off, and so many things seem to be lining up for you. I'd love to hear your story and stuff about what you're working on.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. It really does. What I'm working on, oh my gosh. I am working on a ton of stuff, but I guess I'll start like prior to that. So typical story, like I wanted to be an actor as a kid. Um, my aunt took me around to different like auditions and stuff, and ran into a few scams which were very prevalent back in the day. So that was a
They're
big.
always prevalent.
Oh yeah, that's true. Still to this day, yeah. But I just remember being like, it was just so disheartening, and like it was like, oh man, I even have I don't know how old you are, Quinn, but I have a Blockbuster videotape where like I guess there was like some children that were missing, and so they were doing this thing where they would like tape you and ask you interview questions, and just to get to know a bit about your personality. So if you ever went missing, that your parents could give that VHS to the cops, and then they could find you, right?
Oh
And so
wow.
one of the questions they asked me was, I was 12. They said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to be an actor." So obviously it's been in me, and it didn't work out as a kid. And after high school, got into real estate and lending, which I still do till this day, along with film. And January 2018, I remember being like, I've done great in real estate, made a lot of money, done other types of businesses and stuff like that, but I just didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like there was something missing, and I sort of like did some meditation stuff at home, and like the acting thing came up again. It was like, oh, let me give that a shot. So this was January 2018. So I Googled how to become an actor, right? And I, long story short, I ended up booking a short film that same night as playing a DJ, and I was just so thrilled, and it just like it sparked something in me that I had never felt, doing anything like the real estate stuff and all that, and that was it. I got bit by the bug, and through like networking and stuff like that for projects, I met a guy, and he was like, "Oh, you could be a great producer because of like all of your sales skills, and you understand contracts and negotiations and all of that from real estate." I didn't even know what a producer was, but I just believed him because he'd been in the industry longer than me. So I Googled what is a producer, and how do how do you become a producer, and who are some of the best producers, and I just like went down that rabbit hole. And so I sort of was acting and producing at the same time, and just calling myself a producer. And I don't know, I'm sort of that type of person that like I'll just jump in the deep end and figure out how to swim rather than like let me make sure I know how to swim before I jump in the deep end. So that I guess serves me pretty well.
I love
Um,
that. I feel like anyone that really goes far as a producer, that's just the mentality you have to have.
yeah,
Because if you think about it too much, there's just so many things that make it impossible to do. And that's why a lot of people give up before they even start. But
that's so true. Yeah.
everyone I know that's gone far, it's just they have that same mentality of just, I'm gonna just do it and I'll figure out the problems as they
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, like so my partner, my girlfriend, she's always like she just constantly telling me, I don't know how you, because she's the opposite of me, really.
That's
She
good.
definitely needs to feel ready. Yeah, no, she keeps my feet on the ground. But I'll just like randomly do stuff, and I'll like with not knowing how to do it, and then I'll just be on the internet like, how do I do this? But I already got the job, but like how do I figure this out, And to me, it's like a game. Like life to me is a game, and I love playing games, and I love winning games. So
I love that.
yeah, it definitely is a mindset. But fast forward till now, I produced a ton of stuff. So
It feels like every year you've got more and more projects coming
yeah,
out, and like you seem like you've really gotten in a groove with getting things
yeah,
together.
yeah. So definitely leveling up, which is the whole goal, right? You
Of
definitely
course.
want to level up. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be, of course. I don't know if I'll ever feel that way.
I mean,
That
I think that's
arrived.
the hunger you need to keep
Yeah,
making better and better projects. Like if you're satisfied, that's kind of when it starts dying a little bit. Because
yeah,
like everything is a struggle with making movies. So like if you're not just always reaching for that one thing a little further
yeah.
at a certain point, you kind of start getting returns.
Yeah, I think it's like when you're like I would consider myself a high achiever, just because it's never enough for me. It's like always something else, or I want to like find a problem to solve, you know? It's just my personality. I think that works very well for a producer because
Yeah.
that's really what you are as a problem solver.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. Like so many people think a producer's like this chill job, you sit back and like do whatever. No, it is the hardest job because you really need to have a problem-solving mentality and
yeah.
you also need to know how to do it in a way that you're not pissing everyone off around you,
Yeah,
which is a
yeah.
very fine tightrope to
Yeah,
walk.
well, if you're in my mind, if you're a good producer, because there are producers who are assholes and treat people like shit. Most of them actually are like that. But
Yeah,
I, I'm,
the
I,
greater majority.
yeah, but I want to be like, I strive to be a kind person and like have ethics and high morals, but also be a shark when I need to be in terms of like getting deals done, negotiating stuff, like making stuff happen. So I think there is a world in which you can be both of those.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you're liking this so far, give us a like and a subscribe below. It really helps the channel grow and it helps me keep bringing these episodes to you every Friday.
Things,
I agree. No, I
Yeah.
really agree. And I feel like there was this era, I think definitely, especially when I first got in, there was this era of just absolute sharks being the only
Yeah.
producers you dealt with. And frankly, they burnt out their networks super fast and you don't see them anymore because nobody wants to work with them anymore. So like you
Yeah.
need to have a little bit of both. Can't, you can't be a pushover and
No,
you
no, no. Because yeah,
definitely,
people will run all over you
oh
for
God,
sure.
especially I know you work at LA a bit, like LA crews, they smell blood in the water, they will push you over because that's just
Oh
part of the
yeah.
game. But like
Yeah.
also if you show up every day and you're doing the work as hard as everyone else, you get respect for that. And then
Yeah.
you start having people that will go a lot further for you than you'd ever expect.
Yeah, trust me, I have some fangs, man. You ask any sort of anybody I've ever worked with, they'll tell you I am the bad guy when I need to be, and I have no problem doing that. Especially when it comes to firing assholes. I love doing that. But yeah, so fast forward, like I've worked on a ton of stuff. Right now, I'm, a ton of stuff in development, but like actively stuff that are or is about to be shooting. I have three projects. So I have two features and this other sort of media project that I can't really talk about, but
Sure.
it's a pretty big deal and I'm very excited about it. So I've been working on that for a year. So if that closes, like my whole life's gonna change type of,
I,
you know.
I definitely know that feeling where like you're on the precipice. It could be the biggest thing ever, but you just physically cannot talk about it until you
Yeah,
know if it's going
yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, also it's like I don't know if I want to like jinx it or whatever, but
No,
it's just
yeah.
like and I'm so like, in this industry, especially being an actor as well, it's like I'm so used to like working on something and it's like right there and then it just falls apart. Like I can't even tell you how many times that has happened to me, more
Yeah.
than I want to admit. And it can be
Um,
very disheartening, you know?
like you'll go from that highest peak of I'm about to make this project that's going to change everything, it's going to put me in this new plateau, and then literally overnight the whole thing just falls
Yeah.
apart because one person didn't deliver a contract or changed their
It could be
mind,
anything. Yeah, it's like, oh my,
anything.
yeah.
And like it's
Yeah.
literally it's just like blowing of the wind, something changed,
Yeah.
and you can't do
Yeah.
anything about it.
Yeah.
But like you learned a lot from the process, and from that learning, it pushes you forward in ways you didn't expect later.
Very true. That's the silver lining. Yeah, very true.
That's how I try to look at it, anyways. Because
Yeah.
I've definitely had some colossal failures over the
Yeah.
years as like trying to get some bigger projects together, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
with your stuff, are you self financing? Are you working through studios? I totally understand there's stuff you can't talk about, but like,
Yeah.
what's
No,
your
I don't mind talking about that. Yeah, I don't
okay?
I wouldn't say I self-finance. I mean, sometimes I will defer or add money back in or, you know, put some money in, but I won't self-finance the whole thing.
Sure.
Typically, well, there's many ways I've gotten things financed. Typically, someone comes to me, whether it's like a writer director comes to me and is like, hey, um, I have some money for this thing. Like, I need you to help me put it together because it's typically like I don't have enough money for it, and people know that I can get stuff done for
So
like,
you're kind of good at finding closing funds after someone's gotten
yeah.
that initial infusion.
Well, I'm actually good at fitting everything within the money I have.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
copy.
yeah, that's what I've been known for, and that's I'm just really good at that. And so people talk, and they're
Oh,
like,
it's totally a skill set to have. And then
yeah,
I would guess looking at your stuff, you're generally in like the 1 to 2.5 range, or are you like more towards like 100K?
yeah. I've everything I've done has been less than half a million.
Oh, that
Yeah,
for some of the stuff you pulled off, that is actually pretty impressive because I was looking
yeah.
at your IMDb. You've got a couple projects on there. I would have assumed like one-ish.
Well, yeah, that's sort of again, that's my specialty. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
I mean, even just looking at the cover art on a lot of your stuff, it doesn't
yeah.
read as like sub 500K movies
Well,
because they have a
that's
look.
the trick, right? The trick is
Yeah.
like, I mean, I've seen movies made for 1 to 2 million that look like they were made for a hundred grand or
Oh,
less,
definitely.
But like my skill set is to do the opposite of that. It's like, fit like make it look like $1 million, $2 million movie, but you really had nothing to make it with, and it's stressful as hell. I don't want to continue doing it this way, but you know, for now, that's what I'll do. Now, I will say that my budgets are sort of moving up from there.
Oh,
So
that totally makes sense, especially if that's the reputation you got. People will start coming out of the woodwork with slightly larger budgets as you've
yeah,
proven yourself. And
yeah,
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like I've been seeing a lot of growth in like the sub 5 million indie film market in terms of stuff
hmm
getting made the last couple of years. Cause like I I've definitely been on a lot more movies lately that like are in that 1 to 2 range than I was
yeah.
seeing
That's sort
before.
of Yeah, it's tricky, especially right now in the industry. It's, sales, pre-sales aren't where they are used to be or need to be. Sales in general, even international sales are low, and it's like it's tricky. It's a tricky business because, you know, you go to a sales agent or a distribution company and they want a certain caliber of a name, right?
Yep.
But to get that name, it doesn't make like you almost need to be at a higher budget to get that name, right? Whereas it's just like the math isn't mathin', is what I've been saying that phrase a lot.
Oh, dude, same. And like I feel like it's hitting this point. The amount you have to pay that name talent just to have them show up is almost double the minimum guarantee you're gonna get
Yeah,
on the series in the
exactly,
first place.
exactly. So that's a problem.
Yeah, it's like their math has not been mathing. And I feel
Yeah,
like streaming especially has kind of like devalued the market in this
that's what
way
it
that
is.
people
That's
don't
what it
want to
is.
spend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel almost like for a minute it was seeming like international sales was kind of being the saving grace, but is that feeling like that's going away a little bit too?
Yeah, that is going away, and it's less and less, and so now it's like, I'm hearing that you ideally, if you can, stay under 300,000 if you want to make your money back.
That definitely matches with some stuff I'm hearing too, because
Yeah.
it's that thing of like $90 million movies are struggling to make their budget back because people aren't going to theaters, but also it feels like ad buys aren't working the way they were 10 years
Yeah.
ago to really get people to go to the theater. And then it's also like always the question, like the economy's bottoming out, how much of it is just people don't have money to spend to go to the theater
Yeah.
too.
Right,
It's
right.
a whole
Yeah,
rat's
what
nest of like what's the real cause.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely a major transition happening right now. Um, and just like any industry, I think it's like we just need to like adjust and figure out what the new model is and what's going to work.
Oh, definitely. I feel like we're on the edge of seeing what the new normal is, but we're a couple years out from it stabilizing in a way
Yeah,
that makes any sort of
absolutely.
physical sense on the ground.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, what's your, I mean, I kind of, ask everyone about this because I hear rumors of, mid-budget coming back, that like 10 to $20 million range. Do you think there's a world you could make that possible again in today's market, or does that just feel completely stupid?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have um the experience to answer that, to be honest. Like I always like to be fully, this is something I anytime I have a meeting with somebody, I meet so many people where they're like they pretend to know things they don't actually fucking know. And it's like, why do you have to pretend? Like I'm so tired of people pretending to be someone they're not or know things that they don't. I will tell you straight up what I know and what I don't know. I don't know the answers to that because I don't work in that range.
Yeah,
So
I mean, to be fair, I don't think anyone works in that range right now. Everyone wants to go back to it, but like,
yeah.
when was the last time you heard of a successful $10 million feature? And I feel like one of the biggest problems on it is with the contracts, what everyone's getting paid almost doesn't balance out. Like you're going to get almost a better movie at 2 million than 10 million right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that makes it really complicated because like people could get paid really nicely on a $10 million feature and you should have enough left over, but like I feel like the contract expectations, especially for name talent, have gotten so inflated over the last few years.
Yeah.
And like so much money is just like caught at this beaver dam
Yeah.
above the line
Yeah.
that like you could have a $10 million feature and the crew's making less money than they would on a $2 million
I
feature.
know.
And that
I
makes
know.
no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Or you have producers pocketing half more than half the money and actually making it for 2 million
Oh
in
God, I won't share them on air, but like I've heard a couple of like legendary stories of that happening on
yeah,
like some
same.
films you'd be surprised. But like I'm
Yeah.
not going to share out of class because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but I again I like to solve the problem and I don't know, I'm just still trying to figure out like what model is going to work for me because there's different models in this industry, right? Like
And like what have you been kind of pursuing of late? Like are you going after a particular thing or still just experimenting?
I'm experimenting right now. I'm experimenting right now. I'm and also like watching and sort of figuring out like where the market is headed or the industry itself is headed. Um, I mean, I definitely want to get out of what I've been doing because it's just too stressful,
Oh,
and
it's
it's
so
like,
that sub $1 million range is just so stressful to work in
yeah,
because every cent matters so much.
yeah, literally every cent. And
Yeah.
when people tell me they're making a movie for 1 million or 2 million, and they're like, oh, it's hard. I'm like, hard. If I had $1 million to make a movie, like that would be heaven for me because I'm so used to making movies for nothing and figuring it out that I feel like, and I'm actually grateful that I went this route because I know
Oh,
people that start higher and then they have to come down and they just don't know how to do it. They just can't figure it out.
100%. I know so many people that like if they come from that like major side of like you have 100 million and then they're thrown into like a medium low budget, they
Yeah.
can't handle. Like there's some
Yeah.
epic stories because I come from the production design background. There's some
Okay.
epic stories of production designers going from like working on Marvel films to like, nothing's happening right now. So they try doing, $1 or $2 million features and they spent their entire budget in the first week because they just don't know how
Yeah.
to spend control.
Yeah, see, exactly. I think it's actually better to start low
Yeah.
and get creative and be resourceful and understand all of that. And then go high because then it's like, oh man, this is like,
Yeah, you get amazed by what you can actually pull off at that point because you've been MacGyvering everything from,
yeah, yeah,
toothpicks and wire for so long that it's
exactly.
easy.
Yeah.
And like I feel like the thing that a lot of people on the lower budget actually do, I feel like on the lower budget, a lot of people also kind of avoid getting the experienced crew that can do that. And like,
Yeah.
I would actually be curious, like, how do you go about finding your crew? Like, do you have things that you prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like my first thing I try to go for is referrals from people I know and trust because I tend to work with people that are good people first, but they're also very skilled at what they do and they get stuff done. And so if I know that, let's say I go to, let's say I'll just name a random name. It's like, let's say I go to Bobby and I trust Bobby. I've worked with him before. I know he understands like what type of people I like to work with and, all of that. Well, I will go to him first and ask for recommendations because he knows what sort of like level of like criteria or standards that I would want. And so that's my go-to first is referrals. And then from there, once if I run dry with that, then I just start to put out a post and I start to interview people and that sort of thing. But I really try to get recommendations first because, it's sort of like a warm lead, I guess.
Oh no, totally. And like there is that implied trust of, especially if you've worked with someone before, once you've had that boots on the ground
Yeah.
battle buddy experience,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
each other well enough to know whether or not you can trust what they're giving you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I really try to go for that first. But if I have to like go cold, then it's like basically looking at people's, typical resumes, work, and then interviewing them and just seeing what kind of person they are. Because I can smell bullshit pretty quickly.
I mean, that's kind of the main talent if you're producing is like knowing when someone's lying to you.
Yeah.
Because like I mean, the amount of times that happens is actually kind of unreal.
Oh, I'm speechless. Let's just say that I have no words.
Well, I mean, I feel like right now it's just also work is so tight in general. Like there's so few projects being made. The ones that
Yeah.
are at such low budget, people are really desperate to get work, whether they have the experience to do it right or not. So
Yeah.
like a lot of people, frankly, they're gonna fudge their resume more than they might necessarily
Yeah.
because they really need the cash right now. And like below the line, especially, none of us were making that much money to begin with before all of this happened. And
Yeah.
now like rates that used to be like, I remember even like super low budget, like the rate was like about 500 for someone that was like pretty experienced. You
Yeah.
guaranteed 500 is like your base. Now it's more
Yeah.
like 250, and that's less
I
than
know.
PAs were making a couple years ago.
I know. I know. It's
And like I don't blame
uh,
the producers for doing that because like you're given a budget you have to work with. Like that's
yeah.
bottom line. You have the money you have to work with, and you're doing what you can with it. But like at the same time, it's this whole top down problem of there's not as much money involved, but
Yeah.
everyone's trying to do the same size crew and the same size stuff with half the budget they used to have, and like it's kind of it's creating a lot of weird vortexes in the whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky, it's like because you're right, what we have is what we have. And actually, when I do talk to people, the first thing I lead with is, listen, this is all I have. And
Thank you for
so,
that. Like
yeah,
seriously, thank you for that. Because so many
yeah,
producers they try to play that whole game like, well, what's your rate? What's your budget? What's your rate? What's your budget?
yeah.
And
No,
that hurts
the
everything.
first thing I say other than hello, how are you? It's nice to meet you is, listen, man, I'm going to tell you straight up what I have to work with. And so, if you're open to continuing this conversation, let's do it. But if not, like, I understand.
So many more people should take that tactic. And like, I really think if just every producer just started being really honest about this is the money I have, they
Yeah.
would be shocked by how much better everything would go.
Yeah,
Because you hurt
exactly.
feelings when you like get someone to name their rate because their rate is like what they're used to
Yeah.
making.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not going to do a lower rate, but like just tell them what you have, and then
Yeah.
it's up to them whether or not they can make that work.
Yeah, and the thing is sometimes I'm a little too honest because I'll be like, I'll tell you what I'm making too, like straight up. And I'm being very honest. And a lot of the time I'm making less than crew because,
Oh yeah,
it's like a leadership thing. It's like, I want people to make money and I make money elsewhere and stuff like that. So like a lot of the time I am being paid overall less than people. And
oh, that's
it's okay,
that's totally a thing. Like as when I was working department head all the time, I would generally not get overtime, even though I was doing 10 times as much
Yeah.
overtime as any of my crew, because I used that as leverage to make sure my crew got overtime. I
Yeah.
didn't charge my overtime, so everyone else got there. It's the classic thing in film, like the higher you get, technically the less money you're making, unless you
Yeah.
have a good back end deal, because
Exactly.
frankly, you kind of have to use your leverage to make sure that the people you're hiring every week want to keep coming back.
Yeah, and it's like, like I strive to be a good leader, and as a
Yeah.
producer, you are the leader. And like even on set, this seems like could be dumb, but I always have this fear of like, okay, when people are eating, it's like lunchtime, right? I'm the last person to eat, right? Because my fear is, oh my God, what if we're short food and I'm eating already and someone on the crew can't isn't eating? Like I would feel horrible. So I literally will wait till everyone has their food. I check everyone has their food. Okay, now I could eat. And it's like I do this every time.
It's hilarious. I do the same thing like depending on the position I'm in, like if I'm like a production designer, I make sure all of art eats first before I
Yeah.
grab my food. If I'm
Yeah.
producing, I make sure everyone has their
Yeah, it's a
food before I
leadership
grab mine.
thing.
It's like I honestly don't even think about it that much, but it's just such an automatic thing of
Yeah,
like that just feels right.
exactly. Well, again, I think it goes back to if you actually like have empathy for others. There's some people that are like, you
But the
know,
number of
I'm
sociopaths
getting
in this
fed
industry,
first, okay? I am getting fed first, and I don't know. It's funny.
oh, it really, really is. Uh it's an interesting business because if you look at it on paper, film makes no sense, especially right now with everything going on. Like it
Yeah.
just as a business makes no
Yeah,
sense.
I know.
But like I have faith that it's gonna find its feet again. It's just really a question of how. And like I
Yeah.
think I think something's gonna happen. And like the latest numbers like showing YouTube is the fastest growing streamer in the world right now. That's weird. That's really
That's
freaking
very,
weird. But at
yeah,
the same time, I know a lot of YouTubers that are making more money than some production companies right now
I
by
know.
just doing YouTube videos. And like it begs that question, like, is is the crew shrinking? Is it going to this like super tight, low indie thing? Is it going to be that like budgets get much higher for something that's like more of a traditional picture? Because like
Yeah.
I could see a world where like we end up with more of a divide, and it's like either you're making absolute no budget pictures for like under a few hundred thousand, and then you just
Hmm.
jump up to 120 million as the base.
Oh my
I
God.
don't think that's a good thing, but that's
Yeah.
almost the way the industry looks right now because it's like 120 is almost the base to become profitable anymore, which makes no sense in the world.
Yeah. Yes. Something's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I just,
mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
If
I
everyone
hope
was
it
working
happens.
off of like base rates of union contracts, everything would actually make sense. I think the problem is really that above the line expectation of certain people to just get these huge, huge checks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not involved in the right negotiating rooms to really know exactly where everything's going either.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is, you know, agents, man. And I get it. An agent is like, they are the money people and they're there to fight for you. But sometimes they're just like, God, it's like, come on, they just really want to squeeze every penny from you.
I've had so many projects blow up once the agent got involved. Like everyone was down, all the
Yes,
stuff was all but
yes,
signed. The agent gets involved, the entire thing explodes overnight because the agent completely changed the conversation.
absolutely. Yeah. And they come with like these, not all of them, of course, but a lot
Yeah.
of them, they come with like these attitudes and they're just so, I don't know. They're just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And but anyways,
Yeah.
uh,
But we love the business, right? We
no,
love
it's the thing. Like, you
the
don't do this unless you have this like deep, abiding love for what you do.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think,
true.
I think really like the key right now is just finding something approaching stability inside of it. And once you
Yeah.
do, whether that's outside work or you get to a point where you're making enough money off of past projects, you're good. That
Hmm.
seems to really be the key right now to just weather the storm.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm trying to do. Stay in it. I'm treading water right now.
So you're an LA native, right?
Yes.
But I know you've been shooting a field in other states now.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's a good way to put it. Um, what are you kind of looking for when you start projects? Like, are you generally when you come on, is it already decided we're shooting in this area, or do you have like a hand in figuring out where you're deciding to shoot on a given project?
Yeah. Well, the two feature films that I'm shooting, one in mid-May, which is a horror, and then the other is a thriller, end of June, are both in Arizona. Now,
Okay.
those two are being shot there because of the resources I have access to in Arizona. So, yeah, so I sort of like figured out, okay, we can make these things happen in Arizona due to the resources that I have there. Um, and like locations and all it just worked out. One of them is actually being written uh with the setting of Arizona because of the resources I have there. The
Sure.
other just happened to work out with Arizona. So yeah, that's how that is. And I mean, almost all of my other projects have been shot in Los Angeles, but it's just, with LA, the permits and the,
The
you
permits
know,
have
you
gotten
know,
really to be a headache the last couple of years, especially.
yeah, but even just like locations here, there's no such thing as going to like a mom and pop shop and like some random, we're not in Hollywood or even anywhere close to it. We're in some random city somewhere in another county. And you're like, oh, maybe they'll be cool. Everyone anywhere near LA, if you go to them saying you want to shoot a film, they think they just have, $100 million to spend.
Yep.
And you could tell them you're indie. They don't know what that means. They just think that you have all this money. They're going to charge you $10,000 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I've
So,
definitely encountered that myself. And I feel like there's a world where it breaks my heart that not as much is being shot in LA anymore because there's things there you can't get anywhere else.
yeah.
But I do think as a community, there needs to be a much larger outreaching of education on like the difference between budget ranges, trying to make it
Hmm.
easier for much smaller budgets to shoot there. Because if
Yeah.
we could open it up that like permitting is cheaper and people understand like a smaller budget movie is just not going to have that much cash to rent a spot, and
Hmm.
just having like some more standardized budget based rates on things, I think there could be a huge change and the city would start moving a lot more because there's so many people that are just so hungry to be working no matter the budget range they're right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's like to me, that's common sense, but I don't know who's running these things. So,
I mean, so between Keep California Rolling and the city council has like an investigation going on, I think things could change in the next year or two. But like, you know, government moves at a certain pace,
yeah.
and who knows what they'll come to when they actually like come to some sort of conclusion.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I would love to film in LA because it's like I mean, I live here, so
Yeah.
it's a lot more convenient. I'll tell you that. But
Frankly,
you
I
know,
don't know a single West Coast producer that wouldn't rather shoot in LA than
yeah,
anywhere else.
yeah,
And the only
exactly.
thing stopping them is literally just the line budget of how much
Yes,
it costs to shoot in LA right now.
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
What feels like is next for you? Like, what are you aiming at over the next few years? Are you trying to do more acting, more producing? Like,
yeah.
what feels like, where's your passion driving you? Best case scenarios.
Um, you know, an ideal sort of life for me in this industry would be to be able to do both. Like the problem I have is like when I'm only mainly producing and not doing enough acting, I feel imbalanced. And then when I'm doing more acting and not producing enough, I also feel imbalanced. So it's like I got to keep them, ideally if I could do 50-50 or some, I don't know if that's even possible, but
I
um
think there's definitely a world like it's becoming a lot more common to kind of have your finger in a couple pies right now that like
yeah.
I feel like that's actually a positive now. Where like a few years ago everyone was like stay in your lane, just do your one thing
Yeah.
that you do. But I feel like now it's becoming so much more common that everyone does a little bit of everything. So it's kind of a plus instead of a
Yeah,
negative.
for sure. Yeah, I definitely, you're right. I think back then it's like, are you this or are you that? But now even like some of the bigger stars are also, directing, writing, producing, acting. So, um, they both just fulfill different parts of me,
Yeah.
and, but I've been producing a lot and I'm definitely like leaning into more of the acting while still producing. But like one of my films in Arizona that's shooting, I'm the lead that I'm in the title role, so I'm in the whole film.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, so I'm very stoked about that. Been training hard on it and yeah, so I'm super stoked about that. Um and yeah, I mean I just I want to be I just want to create, I just want to make movies. So whatever it takes for me to make movies and be in them and make a profit, have ownership. So it's like I want to have ownership in each film I make because obviously it's like building that, it's like owning real estate, right?
Yeah.
So that's important to me, and but also acting in if it's appropriate, because not every movie will have a role that's appropriate for me, or I may not be the best fit for, but I'm not like, let me put myself in everything because it doesn't always make sense, you know? Like I want the best for the project. So,
No, that's great. I mean, that's the attitude that every project needs is like it every movie has that champion that like
yeah.
really makes it happen or not. And when it's the producer, I feel like that's really when a film has its best chance to happen. If
Hmm.
like you're the person that's showing up every day and your real goal is just making the best movie possible, because then the ego doesn't get as involved in the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So it keeps me level-headed and keeps my ego in check for sure. But yeah. But I'm probably gonna go PGA and SAG. I've been holding out from going SAG, just because I wanted to. I think people go SAG too early, and they don't
Oh,
really build.
definitely.
They don't build their experience and their acting muscle or in their credits. And so early on, I learned like, okay, I want to actually build out my career somewhat, right? And then I'll go SAG. So yeah, I think probably at the end of this year, I'll go PGA and SAG. So that's another thing. And then
Congratulations on
I
that.
just want to learn more, like I just want to immerse myself more into it and really, I guess my biggest thing is like I want to, if I can, if it's even possible, to master the business side of filmmaking. So that way you know, can make films profitably for my investors and
If you
continue
crack
to
that nut, please tell me because
yeah, yeah. Or, another thing is like I find this like, multi-billionaire who just needs to be able to write off some things. And so it's like, if there's a loss, it's all good.
I could use one of those in my life as
Yeah,
well, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, yeah,
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
yeah. Thank you for coming on this. I've really enjoyed watching your career over the past few years. I felt you are really one of the more working producers that I know in terms of every time I see you posting about something you're doing, you really seem boots on the ground. You really feel like you're not trying to just make a profit, you're trying to make something good. And
Yeah.
I really like seeing that in the world, and I feel like there should be more of it. So I hope maybe this conversation helps some other people get on similar paths. And
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens for you in the next few years.
Thank you, Quinn. That honestly, it means a lot to me. Thank you for those kind words. And yeah, I mean, I hopefully we can work together, you
I would
know?
love that. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love that.
Yeah. We'll talk offline about that.
All right, cool.
All right. Thanks
I'll
for
cut
having
the
me.